Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are going to be giving you a video that was suggested by Werewolf Girl. We are going to be ranking on a tier list the best supermassive couples. So we've got everyone from Until Dawn, The Quarry, Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, and The Devil in Me. Jack, we're just going to get stuck straight in. The first one we have is our beloved Quarry prologue couple. Laura and Max. We're basing the list off of how well written they are, but also how good they are as a couple, how they are for each other. Do you ship Max and Laura, Jack?
Do actually, yeah. Think so. I certainly don't understand the shipping of like Laura with, say, Ryan or something like that. I quite like Laura and Max's relationship. Perhaps the relationship throughout all of Supermassive Games where it's gotten the most airtime, purely because of that chapter 7 where they're both in prison and going back and forth. There's the choice about whether, as Laura, you looked at Max's note. Of course, they've got the whole puzzle solving thing about the werewolf and such. But in like sort of like the other moments as well, like if you get that nice ending where Laura comes back for Max on the island, just shows that there's great affection between the pair. So I think they're going to be quite high, mate, to be honest.
I completely agree. I think the thing about Laura and Max as well is that, yeah, there's flaws there. Like, people will point them out. So, for example, like, you could argue that Laura doesn't always acknowledge Max, like, when she, chooses to, like, go out with her stubbornness and persistence by checking, like, like, the cabin in the building when Max thinks they should get back in the car. So, yeah, like, it's not all, glamour and gold. It's not all perfect. But I do think their flaws actually balance each other really well. Like, Max being quite, like, not getting into college and, being a little bit maybe of an airhead kind of thing sometimes, a bit on the lazier side, and Laura being maybe a bit more ambitious. But I do weirdly think they complement each other. And another scene I'd like to point out, mate, is when they have that heart-to-heart when Laura confronts Max about how he didn't get into, college or university. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a really nice moment between them. I mean, where would you rank them, mate? S, A, B, C, or D?
I feel like a minimum A, to be honest. Potentially even S at this point. We can always like jig them around, can't we?
Yeah, okay. We'll put them in S for now. I have a weird shout that they actually might be the best couple. I'm going to have to see. I think we might be starting with the strongest. We didn't really pick an order, guys. This is just how it came in, but... right, next, Jack, we have Mike and Jess. What do you think of these guys?
Weirdly, I do actually think they suit one another in the sense that like they do project a certain image of themselves. You know how like Jess has that scene where she's like, actually a little bit insecure. She just acts very loud and brash and bitchy and such. I think that, actually as Until Dawn goes on, you do find a softer side to Jess. I think Mike goes on a somewhat similar arc. Like, even with Jess, they like prank one another with like the mask and stuff and like the jump scares. Even he goes on a similar journey where he starts to like, look out for others. He just seems far more approachable as a person as it goes on. He turns into that sort of like typical action hero figure. So I think these two kind of suit one another as well. Of course, they've got sort of the playful banter with one another with like the snowball fights. So yeah, I think Mike and Jess kind of suit as well, mate. What about you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously, we will get to Mike and Emily at the end. They're the last picture you can see there. I think with Mike and Emily, for whatever reason, that didn't work out. So, they're definitely like a newly formed couple. And there are a few red flags there, like how Jess wants to be pampered, like Mike's got to go above and beyond for, her and stuff. But I do generally believe they care for one another. Like, if you think about it, Mike runs after her, like, through, like, the snow, through caves and stuff to get to her. When they get to the end of the game, by default, if both survive, or Jess survives, he will be split from Mike. And she generally is asking, is he alive? Did he get out okay? So they clearly, are affectionate for one another. the only problem for me with this couple is I almost get like popular kid syndrome, you know, where it's like, it's almost like, I'm not saying it's a status thing, but clearly they're both really popular at school. They're very both good looking, you know, and I feel like maybe they're lumped together from the clique. Whether the relationship's got any legs after like the story of Until Dawn and once they get to college, doubtful. I don't know. I don't know if I could see them surviving as adults. I'm a little unsure on that one. So I don't know, like, I think it gets an A maximum for me, but I'm thinking more around B, lad.
So are we? Oh right. So are you thinking this as in like, you know, partners for life sort of thing, or are you want to be in the game? Because I'm talking somewhat in the game. I think
yeah, okay, we'll go in the game. I might be complicating it a little too much.
I think you're right.
In that case, I would give it an A then, I reckon.
I was going to say like an A, but I do think you're right. Like I do think that, you know, long term, don't think that they would last at all. But I think in the game they, yeah, like I said, they go on similar sort of arcs. So I feel like, yeah.
Sweet. I'll let you kick off with Nick and Abby, mate, being such an Abby fan.
No, yeah. So they're both personality-wise kind of similar, aren't they? Not like, even like in this sort of hierarchy of the group, there's that telling scene, you know, when Caitlin like looks at them both and almost like refers to them as children, like, oh, you're so cute, sort of thing. They both seem to be sort of the quieter, the more quieter people of the group, who like they don't have like the loud personality. And I guess on that front they do kind of suit, but then I think it's just like the Nick's perhaps insensitivity to Abby with the whole kiss thing. I'm not too sure on. I mean, clearly like they're somewhat into one another. I think it's maybe stronger on Abby's side, but yeah, I'm not going to say like this is top tier, mate. Like I wouldn't say this is an S, potentially an A, but I'd say if it is an A, less than Mike and Jess.
No, I get you. I think as well, like, they're almost quite let down by the writing as well, because Nick's just driven out the game and we don't really see him again until the credits. So they don't really get to end their arc well, do they? And it almost kind of dampens like it getting into the top tiers here. I do agree with you. I do think they are a good match. You know, they're like the shire of their little cliques, but you know, they clearly care for one another. But yeah, it's also dramatically soured by the fact that Nick has kissed Emma. Now, like, you know, you could argue stuff like, oh, they're not even in a relationship yet, but if I was Abby, I'd storm away. I'd lose all attraction for Nick if that happened. So for me, I mean, it's B maximum, but I'm kind of looking more at C, lad. I almost think Abby's too good for Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree on that front that Abby's too good for Nick. You're saying B maximum, maybe C. I mean, to be fair, I did say like potentially low A, but I'd be fine with a B, to be honest.
Okay, I think these are compromised then. We'll put them there. Oh, Chris and Ashley. Now, the thing is with these guys, right, is that, like, yeah, like, I think they're a fantastic couple all day long. The fact that, like, they're the shy ones in the group. They secretly like each other. They go on that adventure and, you know, their bond, you know, throughout the story, you know, like, the dynamic gets closer and closer, and it is actually a really awesome tale. What I like about their relationship is all the others are, like, set at the start. This one, you get to see it develop during the night. Like, this is the night that makes them, but also potentially breaks them as well, depending on the path you pick. And with that path, you get, like, you can have a really dark Ashley story, can't you? And then, you know, the similar argument we had to, like, Nick and Abby, less from cheating, but more Ashley's darkness. She has that dark edge to her. So that, you know, that might stop her from hitting the S categories, because you might sort of think that Chris is too good for Ashley, perhaps. I don't know, what's your school of thought here?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it's such a shame, as a quick side note, that, like, even if you do keep Chris alive, and Ashley for that matter, that, like, there isn't a payoff. You know how, like, with The Devil in Me, which of course we'll get to later, there is some sense of a payoff for, like, certain relationships.
Yeah.
With this one, it's sort of like being fed throughout the entire game, oh yeah, it might happen. You know, even Josh brings it forward, doesn't he, and says, oh, I did it to try and get them closer together for a moment of, you know, horror. There isn't that payoff, is there? So, like, I always see that couple as like a potential couple. It never properly gets there.
I mean, there is the kiss, you know, before Chris leaves to go with the stranger when they wander outside.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, like, it never sort of spells out that they're official at this point. Like, I don't get that vibe. I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah,
Nick and
of
Abby
course,
like
yeah.
did that in chapter like 3. Like, this is like chapter 7 or 8 that they're doing that. I'm just like, did take a long time. Are they better suited than Nick and Abby? I don't know. I think I'm potentially looking at a B category here. Maybe A, low A.
Yeah, I was gonna say A. I was thinking low A because I think they're really well written. I love the fact that it's one of the only couples we get to see where it's written, you know, in front of us, really. And, you know, the bad stuff comes from the bad choices, right? If you have like a good sort of story where, you know, you really like connect them together, they can have a really cool arc, and then there's the kiss scene at the end. And I do get, you know, maybe you'd want more of a payoff, but yeah, you know, I think the darkness prevents them from getting S, but I'm happy to say low A, maybe below Jess and Mike.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think they're almost equal, actually. In my opinion, I wouldn't know which one to put higher. But yeah, I reckon that's a good spot for them. Oh, mate, Taylor and Daniel.
So the thing is, they kind of suit, didn't they? But because they're both so bland, I instantly think they're forgettable.
No, that's it. It's like, you know, mayo with mayo. Like, there's nothing exciting there, you know. Yeah, like, clearly I buy that they care for one another, but like the problem with Little Hope's writing is that there's no depth to the main 5. So like, you know, I don't know what their interests are. I don't know how they fare. Yeah, so like, it's weird because they're not toxic. They don't really betray one another, I don't think, at any point, right? But I just feel like with their writing, I can't give them that higher score. I just really can't.
No, like all of the other couples that we've discussed so far, I can immediately pinpoint to a moment, like, for all of them. Taylor and Daniel, like, nothing, it comes to mind straight away. So I'm just sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely get you. I'm willing to give them a C because they're bland, the writing's awful, but they don't, like, betray one another, do they? I feel like D might be a little too harsh.
Yeah. I think a C, yeah.
Cool. Right, Eric with Rachel, lad.
Well, I mean, Rachel's literally cheating on the guy. So immediately, if we think that Abby's too good for Nick because he kissed Emma during a game of Truth or Dare, then naturally these guys are going to have to be lower because she's literally been cheating on Eric. So, and obviously they're both headstrong people. You get the sense that Eric is perhaps a little bit more insecure than Rachel is, but obviously, like, he's a leader of like a military faction of some sort. She's in a similar position. It seems like it's by circumstance that their marriage has like gone through the shit, basically. But nonetheless, like, because there's literally one character cheating on the other, I'm gonna say this is probably like a D category, mate.
Yeah, no, that's fair, man. Because I mean, with Nick and Abby, I guess like I mean, I'm not forgiving Nick in any sense, but I guess like he had his peers in front of him. There's probably alcohol involved. I feel like what I get from Rachel here, mate, is that a bit of distance and time happened, and she just couldn't cut it and cheated on him behind his back, and it's unforgivable, really. I will admit, like, skipping ahead, I ship them more than I do with Nick, and in my blind playthrough, the original couple ended up together. So yeah, I'll agree with that at D. But yeah, Eric deserves better than Rachel. Jamie and Erin, lad, what do you think?
Jamie and Erin, I like these two. I do. Obviously, it's sort of a kind of a yin and yang situation again, isn't it? Because Erin, she's the shy intern. Jamie, she's the far more forward. You know, was she like a electrician or sort of like, yeah? So I can't fucking remember what her title was, but yeah, like she's the one that's certainly trying to like advance the relationship along. You've got that nice little scene where they're drinking the booze in the bedroom, and again, like I'll come back to this thing about the payoff at the end. If both stay alive, which is very hard to do, as we've talked about already for Erin, but you do get that payoff, like they do kiss at the end, which is good. It gives it just brings it full circle. So I'm gonna say they are B minimum, maybe even higher. What about you?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I really like them as a couple, because in The Devil and Me we have two couples, right? And sometimes I feel like we don't need couples. Like I feel like sometimes Supermassive Games do this thing where it's like, this person's single, like, well, that can't happen. Well, let's lump them with that character. But I don't know, with these guys, at least it's a bit more organic. There's like, there's a little bit of chemistry and background between them, but you kind of really get to, make them happen a bit like Chris and Ashley style, I like the fact it's choice oriented. They don't have to be together. And I like as well the fact that Erin is like one of the hardest characters to keep alive, that if you do get both to the end, it makes it all the more rewarding. I have seen a lot of people say that it's shoehorned in a little bit. I do think it's also really good that we've got like a LGBT sort of relationship here. It's nice to have a lesbian couple in the game. So yeah, like for that, and also I was also say, like, they don't really act that toxic to one another at all, right? Like they have that barrier of like, Erin potentially thinking that Jamie's like was mean to her over text that was clearly set up, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just don't see any negative stuff to the point that I kind of like think there's no reason to not give him an S, to be honest, lad. Like I feel because of Dark Picture Anthology games are shorter, you get less depth and screen time and writing out of them. That I wouldn't say as high as Laura and Max. I just don't think I would. But I don't know, I can see them having more longevity and being stronger couples than the two couples we have in A there, so I'm willing to give it a low S or a high A.
I was going to say, the only reason why I wouldn't put it up there is literally because that, the amount of time, like in terms of spent, maybe like you look at the other couples and you think there's more direct time spent. But then you got, even thinking about it, like when they're in that sort of spider web in Dumet's hotel, we do have that moment, don't they, where Jamie's about to go off and bait Dumet, and Erin comes up to her and she's like, make sure you come back alive. I think I love you. Which again, like, it's a nice moment to like, it's like a milestone in their relationship that the player can like immediately think back to. So yeah, like, I don't know about S in terms of like compatibility, maybe, but.
Yeah, okay, should we say high A?
Maybe high A for now and see how it like unfolds.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy with that. Conrad and Fliss, I mean, we know my opinions of this one. I'm not a fan. Like, I like the fact that, they can kind of like have that kiss if like Conrad stops hallucinating and he avoids that death at the top. Like, that's a nice little moment. But I just don't believe them. I think Fliss is like really serious. She's like trying to look after her ship. She wants safety. She wants to look after the group. Conrad's just an absolute goof. And I know they do say opposites attract, but I know I just look at them and I don't really see it. And I think the problem I have with it is the whole choice element of this couple. The fact that you're playing as Fliss and Conrad's coming onto you, and you can either be polite or rude. And if you're polite, you end up with your tongue down his throat, I think that's unfair. I feel like there should be an option to be nice, but like kind of reject him politely. It's almost like a black and white choice, and then you end up with this couple that you don't really want or ship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. How about you?
No, I don't get it either. It feels very forced, doesn't it? It's a brilliant example of like, you know, the branching, like to get that nice little scene, because it didn't happen in my first playthrough. Yeah, like they don't seem, it seems really off from Fliss's part, like you say. Conrad, you can imagine it trying to be sort of like the lady talker, you know, like trying to win a girl round and stuff. From her, she does seem almost like very, very stoic, very sort of like guarded and like shut that barrier down sort of thing to any sort of advancement on his end. So when you see that happening, it was a bit odd. I'm glad it doesn't go anywhere, to be honest. I know we said in Medan, like, it might have been nice to see it go somewhere, but actually thinking back, I'm like, would it have necessarily added to the story all that much? I don't think so. But yeah, very bottom tier for me.
Okay, fair. Are you thinking D then?
Yeah, I'm thinking D. D for disaster, but I just don't know Rick and Rachel.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was thinking like maybe a low C, but I'm willing to give it a D because I don't like it. But I would put it above these guys because, and there's cheating involved in that one. At least with these guys, it's like poorly written. It's shoehorned, you know, for us. But you know, when they're together, there's nothing bad there. Like if you do get them together when you don't want them to, at least they care for one another. Yeah. But yeah, so I'll probably give them a high D. But yeah. We didn't want that couple at all, man and Medan, and we got it anyway. Now, Emma and Jacob, lad, what are you thinking?
It's got to be the most toxic one there, isn't it? It's got to be up there with Eric and Rachel. But, like, the thing with Jacob is obviously the whole premise of the Quarry starts because he wants to spend another night with Emma to try and win her around, even though she's flat out said no. But then the thing is, like, when he's there, you know, obviously she's then done the kiss, which is a bit of a no-no, a bit insensitive. Then when they go to the pier, it's like, she then tries to bring him back round again. It's like she's doing that, like, push-pull thing. Where, like, yeah, at the pier, she's like, oh, well, we did say it was a summer thing, which, you know, is true. It was just a summer thing. She didn't stick with that. She was like, oh, well, summer isn't over yet, and she then led him on again. So it's, I don't know, it's a bit nasty, this one. So yeah, again, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a little horrible.
And they do kind of suit. Yeah, they do kind of suit in other ways though, like in that they're both kind of. Both kind of selfish. They're both, you know. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I think with Emma, like, it was supposed to be a summer fling, and Jacob's sensitivity could not handle that, and you know he's an absolute man-child at times, and I think the actor does really well to kind of portray that. But yeah, the whole push-pull thing, I think, you know, Emma's no saint either. You know, the kiss should never have happened. That was her doing completely, and to hurt Jacob. But I feel like almost maybe she felt like she had to do the pier thing to stop Jacob from crying. So, like, the whole thing's just toxic. There's nothing good about it. It's an absolute D from me. I just don't know how low we're going. Is it... I mean, there's cheating, so it's probably actually worse, you know, like... You could argue it's worse than Eric and Rachel. At least with Eric and Rachel, maturity there, and you know, like they can at least reform, can't they, and become mature adults by the end of it, right?
Yeah, it's true. And then, like, because you think regardless, it ends badly for Jacob and Emma, isn't it? Even if they have that moment where he like reveals to her why he did what he did, she doesn't take it well, so it always ends badly. So yeah, like, arguably worse. Do you think as well, because it was both of them? With Eric and Rachel, it was very much Rachel that was driving sort of like the bad reasoning for why it was put in D, but yeah, I think Jacob and Emma is worse, mate.
They might actually end up being the worst couple on this list. We're moving over to Julia and Alex. I mean, there's not too much to say about them. I think Alex is an unbearable character. Julia's okay. I think Julia's a lot better than Alex is. One thing that makes me want to rank these guys actually fairly low, and sorry you're sick to death of hearing this, Jack, because I keep mentioning it, but we recently did our Medan analysis, and one of my takeaways from that game is that the game actually becomes better if you reject the proposal as Julia, because Alex and Julia have a bit of like a bickering dynamic on the ship, and it goes really well. It actually adds another layer to the game that I think is actually really enjoyable. So in many ways, I would argue they're better without one another. But if they go well and they're a couple, they're happy. Like it's just you buy them as a couple. There's not too much wrong there. But I don't know. I can see this being like maybe a C or a B category thing here. Mate. How about yourself?
I think C category. I don't know what it is. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. It's not even like there's immediate examples that come to mind. For what? But I just look at them and I don't think it works. I don't think there's necessarily a spark between them like with other characters and relationships. I sort of get it more. I don't know, it's just something about Julia and Alex. It's just, I don't know. Comes back to that whole bland thing again with like Taylor and Daniel. There's not like a hell of a lot of depth there. Then, you know what I mean? It's tough to judge. I probably would put them above Taylor and Daniel though. At least you get like with Alex, he's like the umming and ahhing about like, marriage at the beginning. Obviously if she does accept, it can be, you do get moments where they like have a selfie together, and little moments like that is perhaps what separates it from Taylor and Daniel. But yeah, it's a close one between them two, to be honest, in the C category.
Nah, fair play, man. We'll put them there. We come to Caitlin and Ryan next. I'll let you kick off this one.
See, it's tough to judge this because I've had in my blind playthrough, I didn't get this, and I don't think I've actually seen it. Like, no tell, like I have done a version of Truth or Dare where, like Caitlin and Ryan, I think. But again, it doesn't seem, not even necessarily from a player's point of view, but even from like a writing, so maybe Supermassive point of view, I get the impression that they were pushing the Dylan-Ryan relationship more. And Caitlin being in this little triangle didn't make a lot of sense for me, mate. And even like looking at them, like maybe you could say the whole opposites attract thing. Ryan being the quiet loner guy that listens to podcasts, and then there's the Caitlin who's like very, very outward, very loud personality, etc. Again, it's similar to the last one. I just don't see it, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I think they went for that love triangle and it really didn't need to be. All of Ryan's scenes midway through the game are with Dylan, so if there's any spark, it's going to be with them two. It's almost like they just threw a random thing in there for like the Truth or Dare game, and then there's just one little mention of Jacob saying like, "Oh yeah, I know you like Quiet Kid Ryan," and that is like the only thing that comes of it. And even, like I'll talk about it more when we do Dylan and Ryan later, but like neither one of them things like get like written well at the end anyway. So yeah, this is like almost like it almost shouldn't even be on the list. Like it has to be because it's like a potential ship. But yeah, it's one I don't even see either. So it could probably be D as well. I mean, C or D. It's weird because it's not toxic in any sense of the imagination. It's like Conrad and Fliss. It's there and it almost shouldn't be.
Yeah. I'll leave it with you, mate. Either category I'm fairly happy with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be with Conrad and Fliss. At least with Conrad and Fliss, they can have some moments and a bit of ending, but there's no sort of cheating and darkness between them and toxicity like these guys, so I'm going to put them there, second in D.
Sweet. So who's that? Is that Mark and Kate next?
It is, lad.
Mark and Kate. You can tell that they were trying to like put these two together, weren't they? Like you've got the scene where he's obviously afraid of heights and she's like helping him along the bridge. They have a couple of like quiet words together. Same when you're in Kate's bedroom, she's got the crystal and he starts to like talk to her. Of course, choices do come into it. You can get them to kiss. I don't remember, obviously, to be fair, Kate did die in my playthrough, but like I can't remember them kissing at the end, but that picture looks like might be them kissing. I can't quite tell. The pixels is a little bit small on my screen, but yeah. I'm gonna say that it's probably maybe it creeps into B, but not as high as Nick and Abby. Is that too high? What do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because obviously, you put Nick and Abby in A, and I said C, so it's balanced to a B. I could see it being a B relationship, to be honest. I mean, the thing is for me is that I buy them as a couple. There's clearly history. They clearly care about one another. It's cool that you can rekindle them because they are exes. You can get them back together in the game. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I might sound harsh. I might get people coming after me for this one, but I somewhat feel maybe their dialogue moments are a little on the duller side over other couples and other characters in the game. I don't think the performance is bad by any means, but I was a lot less invested in this relationship than I was, say, Jamie and Erin's. So yeah, I'd put it where you say. I reckon it's a B couple, so yeah, I think that's probably fair, because at the end of the day, there's not really an element of toxicity there either, is there?
No, I feel like it could very nearly go into the C category, but I feel like it's got a little bit more than Alex and Julia at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
By default, that's what almost shifts it into B. Like, yeah, it could be a high C, we don't know, but certainly a low B.
Matt and Emily, lad. I mean, I'll kick this one off. I mean, it's odd because, like, I would say definitely worse than the other Until Dawn couples we've discussed so far, because what's funny about them is that when you first see them, Emily's getting Matt to carry his bags. It's almost like you almost get the impression, I don't know if like this is wrong, but maybe she's like still into Mike or something, and then she's just with Matt like as almost like a jealousy ploy, and like
rebound.
I don't see Emily caring for Matt. I don't really see it that much. The interesting thing is though, is that when you get the jump for safety or reach for Emily choice, that Matt's actually better off the moment he starts standing up against Emily and doing his own thing. It's safer for him, and you could argue he's happier. Weirdly though, if he reaches for Emily, he could be in more jeopardy. But one thing is though, is that Emily does sort of call out for Matt. Like her opinion of Matt switches based off of that choice that Matt does. But I just think in terms of, despite that, they're just doomed. The whole thing's toxic. Like, Emily wants a bag carrier. Matt is like, simping for this girl that just doesn't deserve it, to be quite frank. So yeah, I don't know, mate. I think this is an awful couple, and it might be another one that falls in D here.
100% agreed. It's funny, I was going to point to that like radio tower choice as well. I feel like that could almost be like a symbolic thing of their relationship, in the sense that like him reaching for her is the wrong decision. Him thinking about himself, I know obviously it's a life and death situation, but if you think of it like symbolically, him pulling away from her and thinking about himself is what he needs to do in this relationship. Him going towards her is feeding into the narrative that's already there, the bag carrier, the rebound from Mike, etc. So yeah, honestly, you've put it already, mate. Like, it's a very toxic relationship, and yeah, certainly bottom tier. It's just a matter of where, I reckon.
I'm gonna put it there because there's not really cheating. I'd argue like Emily hugging Mike isn't cheating. Like, it's not in here, but like if we're talking about them, I do see a lot of people talk about Matt and Jess because they get their moment at the end. And yeah, you know what? Like, I don't know if I ship them more than Mike and Jess, but I like the fact that Jess and Matt have that weird dynamic, and I reckon they could be like maybe a B or a C standard or something, because yeah, they get a bit of a mention as well, mate.
Yeah, and maybe people are like unconsciously making that connection that they're like the new partners in their relationships. Obviously, Mike and Emily being a couple, they've split up, and then Matt and Jess are obviously the partners of them two now. So that's why like people partly are shipping them as well. But it was like I said earlier, Jess does go on that arc where she becomes more likable, then sandwich her with Matt, so I can see why people are making that connection.
Yeah, so we haven't got them in, guys, but food for thought. The next one we've got here is House of Ashes. We've got Rachel and Nick. Now, I mean, it's just like Eric and Rachel here. The thing is, though, like, I mean, there are good bits with Eric and Rachel. It's just they're only in the D category on this one because Rachel cheated. Now, with this one, this is the product of them cheating. One thing I hate about this relationship, lad, is the fact that Nick acts toxic the whole game. He's really snipey, like, you know, angry at Eric, even though they're a couple and he's completely oblivious. So I think the whole thing is just so, like, venomous and just disgusting. I don't know about you.
It is as well, yeah. I feel like with this one, in terms of them as a couple, like if you just took, I suppose you can't take the cheating out of it. I just don't buy into it. I feel like Rachel, again, is like with Nick by circumstance. You know, she's not with Eric. Eric's away. There's a man that's shown her some attention, some affection, and it's just sort of, you know, it's fell into that trap, as almost outlined in the flashback scene that you can get. But yeah, you're absolutely right. About like Nick's behaviour throughout the game. And although he does say to Rachel a couple of times, like, okay, we've got to tell him now, you feel like that he'd level that anger at her a bit more, considering she's the one that holds the cards in this situation. Because yeah, like you say, Eric, he doesn't know anything. He has to figure it out all by himself. So certainly D category, not only because of the cheating, but even on a surface level as well. I don't see them matching up at all. So
I think maybe I would put them here because I think, you know, they're the same, but at least, like, I mean, at least I think with Nick, he's probably just a little love struck. I reckon he actually does like Rachel, but with Rachel, she's just absolutely horrible, toying both men. With Emma and Jacob, at least with that one, they're as bad as each other, where they're really just egging each other on and the torturing each other in the most horrible ways with manipulation and everything under the sun. But yeah, happy with that placement. Sweet. Now, Dylan and Ryan, I mean, to be honest, this might be like the first sort of like gay relationship that we've been given, like, playable in like Supermassive Games history. I quite liked it. I do think I actually really enjoyed the dialogue between the two of Dylan's goofiness versus Ryan's seriousness. I actually quite liked it. I'm not gonna lie, I shipped them around the campfire. I actually picked them two to kiss because I bought into it more. One thing that I just didn't like about it is how they concluded it. Like, I always say this, but like chapter 7 of the Quarry, the flashback one, goes afterwards, and then Ryan just leaves to go to the Hackett house with Laura, completely neglecting handmaid Dylan and Caitlin, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Their whole story arc just gets dropped on its head, and although all the seeds were there for it to be really good, but they just didn't finish it, and it's just very frustrating. And it had all the recipe, mate, to be an S category thing, but they just didn't do anything with it. They dropped it on its head, and it can't get that high in my eyes.
Yeah, I've said this a few times, that I really do feel like that at the end of the Quarry you needed some sort of cutscene for like the survivors, because yeah, like when it just cuts to the sky and then the Dream Believer comes on, you get like the cards sort of saying what happened to all the characters. Yeah, like so many stories in that game felt unresolved, and this certainly was one of them. I do remember from our Quarry podcasting though, I know you definitely shipped them more than I did at the time. I think maybe it's just the way that I interpret it, but more from like Ryan's side, it felt like that he was being a bit more hostile than he should have been if he was into Dylan. Like, Dylan was being openly quite flirty and forward, right? But it seemed as though like Ryan was having none of it. Like, I can only think of one example, and it's when they're in the radio station and he says about like learning some sort of class. It's only at that point that like Ryan seems to sort of like, you know, just ease up a little bit and not be as tense. I don't know, it could be me reading it wrong? That he maybe is just introverted and takes himself seriously, so he's almost like projecting that. But like, I don't know. I feel like there wasn't as much harmony there as there could have been in order for me to buy it. If I'm honest, with like all the other couples, I do see harmony there. Like even on the walk up to the lodge, I remember Ryan was sort of like, slagging off is a bit of a strong term, but like just sort of like dissing Dylan for like following his sort of dreams. I can't remember what it was for now, but like he was he was, I'm surprised that you would be doing that sort of thing, but in a sort of a tone that was quite derogatory to him. I was like, are they really trying to ship these two together? Like, I just don't see it as much as everybody else, in my opinion, which I do think is a shame, and I think you are right that they did need it to be resolved. Like, if you did pick them two to kiss, you did need them to come together at the end for something, like other couples on here have, like Mark and Kate.
Nah, I do actually get that. Now that you remind me, you're completely right. Like, Ryan has a lot of snipes at Dylan, which are really uncalled for. Dylan definitely likes Ryan more than Ryan likes Dylan, and that definitely shows. So yeah, like, although they have their great moments, there's some rocky bits in there as well. But also, just like I mentioned, you know, the fact that the whole thing's unresolved. You know, we are basing this list off of the writing as well, and the latter half of the game, the writing gets really poor. So, by that logic, mate, it's weird because this is the couple, a bit like Lily in the Walking Dead character. Is she good or bad? There's good and bad moments. So like, there's times where they're like A, and there's times where they're like C. So I'm willing to give them maybe a high C or a low B. I think that's a good spot for them.
I'm just trying to think, because even the Truth or Dare kiss, it's not like a kiss they volunteered it per se. It's not like Mark and Kate's kiss where they just openly kiss at the end. If I'm honest, I'd say high C, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, we'll give them a high C. Because, like, there's good shades there in the relationship. But yeah, like, and it's also just sort of diminished as well by the fact that Ryan just goes after Laura, which makes no sense. But yeah, there we are.
Does give off that vibe, doesn't it?
Right, we're ending with Mike and Emily. Now, this was a bit of a late addition here. It's tough because they were a couple. They're not anymore, but they clearly care for one another, as the picture displays. They're sharing a little bit of a hug. So Mike being like kind of like the leader of the group as the back of everyone, but at one point he equally has the opportunity to shoot her in the face. So make of that what you will. It's a bit weird. It doesn't really give us any details as to why they split, which makes it quite hard to rank them as well, doesn't it, Jack?
It does, yeah. And the fact as well... Sorry, excuse me. Then, what is it, like a year later? He's then going out with another girl in their group. On the one hand, like, it shows that he cares for her, but, like, it could just be that whole sort of typical teenage dynamic when people are young. Everyone goes out with everyone. But at the same time, it's sort of like it's a little bit insensitive. And the same, obviously, for her going with Matt. But as we've said already, it seems like that she's doing that as a rebound, maybe to get back at Mike. Whereas Mike seems to be the one leading that he's, going out with Jess and he's developing something with Jess. So, again, there's like undertones of it being kind of toxic there as well. In terms of, I feel like Mike and Emily suit at the beginning of Until Dawn, but as I've said, Mike goes on some sort of arc. Emily does as well, kind of, but I feel like that's why Mike and Jess suit a bit more. So I don't think it's near them two, to be honest. What about you? What's your thoughts?
I feel like there's just not enough to go on, but it's not exactly toxic either. It probably ended organically, considering they're not at each other's throats, right? It seems like Jess and Emily have more of a problem with each other than, Mike and Emily. So, yeah, probably goes in the C category. I think probably Probably not as good as Dylan and Ryan because there's good moments there. Alex and Julia, there's genuine affection. I'd say it probably goes like maybe above Taylor and Daniel, but like smack bang in the middle of C. I just don't really know what else to do with it.
Yeah, let's throw it in there.
I will put it there. Very well. So, guys, this was our ships and couple ranking for all the Supermassive games. Like all lists, you know, it's interchangeable. I'm going to edit this in a week's time and be like, what was I thinking? It's just the nature of it. But yeah, we've gone for Laura Max at the top. We've gone for Jacob Emma as the worst. I'll leave the link in the description so you can have a play of it yourselves. Maybe add some more ships because we're aware that, you know, for reasons of time and fairness, we basically limited it. But there are more to throw in there. So feel free to have a play about with the list, guys. Go wild. Anything to mention, Jack?
No, I don't think so. Happy to wrap up, mate.
Sweet. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed listening to our list. You know, it's a random bit of idea we had. Thank you very much for Werewolf Girl for pitching this. We hope it lived up to everything you imagined. But regardless, we will see you in the next one. So take care for now, guys.
Bye-bye for now.